Hi, I'm Liz, and welcome to Believe in Yourself. Thank you again, as always, to everyone who has subscribed and liked the videos and commented on them, because I love hearing from you. Thank you to everyone who appreciated my candor about the Pisces. Definitely stick around for more, honest reviews. That's what we're all about here at Believe in Yourself. So I'm going to kick it right off. The first book I'm going to be talking about today, what even is it? The first book I'm going to talk about today is An American Marriage by Tayari Jones. This book is about a couple named Roy and Celestial. Very soon after they get married, Roy is arrested for what we kind of come to believe and trust is a false rape allegation. He and Celestial are staying in a motel and a woman comes forward and claims that Roy raped her. He's sent to prison. There's a whole bit that's an exchange of letters between Roy and Celestial while he's in prison. A few years later, he gets out, and then most of the book deals with what happens when Roy is released from prison. Since he was innocent when he went in, there's obviously a lot of trauma that he dealt with of like, why am I being forced to serve my time for something that I didn't do? And then Celestial feeling like obligated as his wife to sort of pause her life. And then when she stops feeling obligated to do that and moves on with her own ambitions and her own love life, like what happens from there. I loved this book so much. I had recently seen the movie If Beale Street Could Talk, which is a gorgeous, gorgeous film by Barry Jenkins. Lovely, but deals with a lot of the same concepts as this. So when I started reading it, I was like, I don't know that I'm gonna like really, I feel like I just saw this story. But it actually turned out to be so much more than that. They definitely have running similar themes, but some of the most interesting conversations to come out of this book were between Roy and Celestial about what happens after he gets out. Very rarely do I have this happen, but what I was finding with the two of their conversations was that I felt like they were both right about everything. Like they're arguing, and most of the time when there's an argument happening between two characters in a book, I 100% instinctually go with one of them. I'm like, that person's right. Like, if I was in that situation, I would do the exact same thing that person is doing. Like, no question. This was so much more complicated and difficult, and I wasn't like 100% on Roy's side or 100% on Celestial's side. But even when they were doing things that I was like, oh, I understood why they were doing them because they were in this horrible position. That's what I felt like the real villain of this book is just like the American justice system and how absolutely garbage it is. You really get a sense in this of how just like putting people in prison, especially Roy and Celestial are both black, so that's also obviously a huge part of this is how black people are treated in the American justice system badly. The really sad thing about Roy is that he is not the person that they think he is when he goes into prison, but that he like sort of becomes that when he's out. All of these stereotypes and all of this sort of like behavior that he would have never exhibited had he not gone to prison, because they just put him there unfairly, he started exhibiting those behaviors. It's that cycle. It's the like, this is how we put you back in prison, is because we've made you something that you are not. Like really fantastic and unbelievably beautiful writing. There are some metaphors. You all know how I am about metaphors. Delicious. So I just loved it. I gave it 4 stars. I don't know why. Now I'm having a crisis about why I didn't give it 5. Maybe just because it surprised me. I wasn't going in thinking like this is going to be 100% my shit, but yeah. So I would highly recommend it. It feels like required 2019 reading for sure. The next book I'm going to talk about is Manhattan Beach by Jennifer Egan. I love Jennifer Egan. I'm a Jennifer Egan fan after her book, Visit from the Goon Squad, which I read a few years ago and really liked. But this one was not as much for me. It takes place in World War II, and I'm not a great period piece person. Period piece person. It kind of follows the interconnected stories of this family named the Kerrigans and then this other guy named Dexter Stiles. And it has a big time jump. There's like the whole first part is I think like I want to say 4 or 5 years before the second part, but then most of the book is the second part. Why wouldn't you just write the second part and then you could like give us that information? I don't know. But most of the book centers around this character named Anna Kerrigan. Loved her. She's great. She's very interesting to me. Woman in the 40s, all the men are off at war. And so she's working in a factory, and then she gets it in her mindset on becoming a diver. and like basically like working on warships underwater. Super cool. Love that. Love her. Obviously, she deals with all the typical kind of like, you can't be a diver, you're a woman. Oh, what about if you get your period? Like the usual. But she overcomes it. She's awesome. So much interesting stuff happens with her in that, and like her little community that she forms is so cool. Then there's the other part of the book that's like, who cares? That has to do with this guy named Dexter Styles and his mob stuff. Truly and genuinely, I don't remember anything that happens with him. Him and his whole giant family that he married into. And there's so many times he would name people and I'd be like, I don't know who that is. I just found that part of it to be like unbelievably boring, which is a shame because the Anna parts are so good. And so it was a weird book because like I so enjoyed specific parts of it and so hated other parts of it, which of course like didn't leave me feeling great after I finished it. The part that really pissed me off, I was like at 3 stars for most of it because I was like, you know, like it's pretty good. Like I like Anna, the writing's fine. It's dealing with some interesting topics, time periods, stuff like that. Then, spoiler alert, Anna has like a one-night stand with Dexter Styles and she gets pregnant. And then there's a whole storyline about like, oh my God, I'm pregnant. I can't dive anymore. I should get an abortion because I'm going to ruin my life because I'm not going to marry this guy. So I'm going to be basically like shunned from society. It just kind of comes across like shamey to me. I would love to read a book about a woman who gets pregnant and then like has the abortion because she's like, I recognize that I need to like do this for myself. Like there aren't enough books like that. There's so many books that are like, I'm gonna turn my life into this being like all about being a mother. And of course there's nothing wrong with being a mother. I love my mother. I can't wait to be a mom someday. But like, it's such a lazy thing to do with your female character. It makes me feel like you didn't know how to end her story. So you were just like, baby? Women have babies, that's what they do, right? And it just feels so like gross to me to just like feel like you have to like finish up a woman's story with her having a baby and her becoming a mother. I hope that makes sense. I just like, it just really didn't sit well with me. It felt very lazy. It felt very hackneyed. Like it just wasn't what I wanted for this character. Not at this time when she had done this unbelievably exciting thing and was like this first female diver. I ended up giving it 2 stars because I was very betrayed by the end and that I was just like bored. It's just like, and it's a huge bummer because I really like Jennifer Egan and like Visit from the Goon Squad is anything but boring. It's like very, very interesting and like at times very weird, which I love weird. I wish more, you know, books and movies went weird. So this was just like, just kind of your typical World War II story. Wasn't really my thing. The next book I'm going to talk about is called Force of Nature by Jane Harper. This is more just kind of your typical run-of-the-mill thriller, which I love. I love a good mystery. I don't remember what drew me to this one specifically because Force of Nature is actually the second book in this Aaron Falk, he's the detective, like it's his series. I don't know why I decided to read the second one first. That's actually very unlike me. The synopsis must have called to me in some way. But it's basically about this group of coworkers who go on a like wilderness retreat. It takes place in Australia. They go into the bush to like team build and one woman ends up missing. Aaron gets called in to like solve the mystery and he and his partner do, and it's just kind of like, it hits all those beats that you would kind of expect for like a fun little mystery thriller. I did like it more than I thought I was going to, kind of when I like picked it up, especially after 2 such kind of like heavy books as American Marriage and Manhattan Beach. I thought it was just kind of be like a throwaway sort of like, oh, whatever, it was fun. But I actually really liked it. It dealt with parenting and motherhood in a way that I found very interesting, in an unexpected way actually, that I didn't anticipate when I started it. So it really actually like affected me more than I thought it was going to, and I actually found myself very like touched at the end. The only things I didn't like about it were that Aaron is our kind of ostensibly the main character, and he was very boring to me. He sort of just felt like a vehicle through which to tell this story. Like he could have been anybody. He doesn't have anything particularly interesting about his character specifically. You can definitely read this book like without having read the first one. I don't feel like I lost anything, but there is some Aaron stuff where it's clearly like, oh, if we had read the first one, we would like get this. But I'm not motivated to read the first one at all because I think it'd probably be more about Aaron. And in this one, I was like, no, more about these women. The book is split between the present day, when Aaron and his partner are solving the crime, and flashbacks to what like was going on when the women were on their retreat. And that was way more interesting to me. I was like, that book is better. I love stories about like 5 people go into the woods and like what happens. Like the idea of kind of like nature bringing out both the worst and the best of people is a very fascinating concept to me. So it was fun. I think I gave it 4 stars. It's probably more like a 3.5, 4 star. It's just like solidly good, enjoyable, fast, quick thriller read. The next book I'm going to talk about is Being Mortal by Dr. Atul Gawande. This is my nonfic of the month, and I actually read it because it's my work book club. I work in healthcare, and so this was our like book club book. It is written by a doctor, like I said, and it is about the process by which we care for our ill and elderly in America. He also dipped into how some other cultures and countries do it because he's Indian, his family's Indian. So he kind of talked about his family in that sense also. He talked a lot about retirement homes and hospice and how to care for people when they're dying and how to care for people when they're aging. I did not think I was going to have any interest in this. I was like, when I saw that it was our book club book, I was like, okay, I'll get through this, like for work. I'll do it for the job. But I was like really affected by it. One, it gave me kind of a panic about dying, but something that it really gets into a lot of is the idea of medicine treating like the body but not the patient, or the patient but not the person, so that like if you're having somebody who's like 90 something years old, they can't live on their own anymore for whatever reason, and so they're going to go into hospice care and maybe or go into or live in a nursing home, and the most important thing is going to be to just like keep them alive and keep them safe. And what doctors have found is that that's actually a horrible way to treat someone. Even if you're keeping them alive, a lot of the times it can be like at what cost? Like they're not happy, they're like strapped to a bed with a feeding tube, they're not enjoying themselves. And so there were all of these experiments kind of that have been done where like there was this one incredible story about a doctor who came into a nursing home and was like, we're just going to bring in animals. Like the state says we can only have 1 dog and 1 cat. Well, I'm going to put in 2 cats per floor, 4 dogs, and everybody's going to have a parakeet. So enjoy. And everyone was like, that is not a good idea. Like, who's going to care for these animals? This is so, it doesn't line up with health safety. Like we have these people's trust that we're going to care for their aging families. But what they actually found was that the nursing home and all the residents like came alive. Like they actually needed this, even though that environment may not have been like safe or healthy. What they found was that because they were giving the residents responsibility and they were giving them joy, and they had like the parakeets were like singing, so when the people woke up, they felt like they were in somewhere that had life. And what they actually found was that people lived longer. People were happy. It shouldn't be revolutionary that it's like, oh, people are happier and they live longer, but like it is. It just like really blew my mind. I'm getting like emotional talking about it. I hadn't considered so much of this before because I'm very lucky. I have 3 of my grandparents. I've been very lucky. I've been very blessed that like my family's very healthy. I've never had to consider a lot of these things. So it really like affected me, and it made me think about how things that should feel obvious, but like I don't live my life in a completely healthy, safe way. I do things that are like silly and dumb and not good for me because they're fun and because I want to enjoy my life and like I like enjoying things. And that should also be true for the elderly. Like they should also just be able to like have fun and enjoy their lives and not just be like, I have to live in this like controlled environment all the time because I can't care for myself. Like there's this beautiful medium that can happen where you can still be a person and have hobbies and have interests while also living in a communal space or having someone care for you at home. Just like really interesting and like totally took me by complete surprise when I was reading it. I ended up getting like really teary because Dr. Gawande ends up kind of like getting into how he dealt with his own father's aging and dying, and like all of the things that he had to eventually ask him, kind of like, what do you want out of your elder care? I don't know if I'd recommend it, because like it was tough to read at times. It feels kind of like required reading. Like, it really does feel like the kind of book that you should read to inform both how like you want to age and also how like your family members. Like, I feel like I need to like call my family right now and be like, what do you want out of your care? I'm getting emotional. Who would think this is the one this month that would really like get me going? I gave it 4 stars. I really loved it. It just like really got me. The last book I'm going to talk about is called People in Trouble by Sarah Schulman. This book ended up on my list because Rent Live just happened, for all of you musical theater nerds out there. And there was a lot of conversation on Twitter about how apparently there are people, including Sarah Schulman, the author of this book, who feel like Jonathan Larson, the writer of Rent, who died like right as it was getting onto Broadway, feel that he plagiarized Rent from this book. She actually wrote a book about how Rent was plagiarized from this book. So she definitely felt that way, and a lot of people feel that way. And so I read this to form my own opinion. It's important to make sure that like credit is going where it's due, and there actually have already been plagiarism suits with Rent, because the dramaturg who worked on the show claims that she wrote a lot more of the screenplay than she was credited for. So Rent is not without its drama. In terms of plagiarism scandals. So I was like, I'm into this. I want to know. I want to form my own opinion about it. And my opinion is not plagiarism. People in Trouble, which also takes place in the 90s, is basically about a couple named Kate and Peter. And Kate is discovering her sexuality and starts to date a woman. She's an artist. She and Peter are both artist, but she's like a visual artist, like she paints, and Peter is a lighting designer for theater. So Kate's new partner Molly is a lesbian, and she's very tuned into the community. She has like all these gay friends, and of course like it's the 90s, so a lot of them are dying, so her whole storyline is about like going to all these funerals. So that's most of the book, is just like Kate dealing with having like her husband who she loves and her girlfriend who she also loves, but in a very different way. Kate gets very upset with Molly because Molly doesn't like the fact that Kate still likes men. Peter, like, is dealing with the fact that his wife is in love with a woman, and so gets very kind of like, I need to like get out of this scene. Like, it bothers him when he like meets another gay person because he's like, oh, you're gay, get over it, everybody's gay now. He kind of sucks. Actually, he really sucks. So yes, it is like Rent because it deals with queerness and homelessness and AIDS and art and other kinds of similar concepts. Storyline wise, they are nothing alike. They take place in the same time period, and like, you could say that about Manhattan Beach and like 50 other books. So really, did Manhattan Beach, you know, was it plagiarized off of, I don't know, All the Light We Cannot See? Probably not. Interesting read. Super not my style. Like, definitely not what I would just pick up and like read for pleasure. I was really kind of like in research mode. I really love to read books written in their time period about the AIDS crisis. I feel like it's really important that we never forget that that happened. It's something that I feel like very passionately about. In that sense, I was really interested in it. I gave it 3 stars, I believe. You know, just fine. My reading tip this week is dedicated to my mom, who is currently reading 4 books at once. I have struggled with this. I used to literally have a stack like a mile high on my desk of like books that I would start and not finish. And my only advice in this situation is like, don't start another book unless you finish the one that you're currently reading. Unless you have way more self-control than I do. But I have learned for me that if I don't finish the book that I'm currently reading, I either need to give up and maybe come back to it at another time when I'm more open to it, or say that wasn't for me, I'm done, before I start another one, because otherwise it's not gonna be good. So hopefully that's helpful to anyone out there, including my mom. If you like this video, give it a little thumbs up and give me a comment. Let me know what you thought about any of these books, if there's anything you'd recommend based on what I like, what I didn't like. I actually added a recommendation from one of you guys to my list for March, so that'll be exciting to read and talk about. So please keep them coming. Let me know what you think that I would like, or tell me what you liked or didn't like about any of the books I talked about today or last week or any of the other ones I've talked about in previous episodes. Subscribe if you are interested in hearing more about what I'm reading and thinking about and talking about. And until next time, believe in your shelf.